Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Q&A for I Blame Society. We are so lucky to have not only the film's director, Gillian Horvat, who's right here. Want to say hi? Give a wave.
Hi.
We're in the drive-in right now. People are watching from their cars, and you're watching from your car right now, which is amazing. In the future, because Gillian's going to Memphis. And we are very lucky to have Indie Memphis, a returnee alumnus. We have Zia Anger, who debuted her show, or her festival debut of my first film, and which has just meant so much to us here. And we are so happy to have this conversation.
Cool. Thank you for having me. And Gillian, thanks for sharing your film. It was, I mean, the first like 5 minutes, I texted Miriam and I was like, oh yeah, I see the overlap for sure. And I mean, I think for me, the most visceral part of it is when your character is in the pitch room with the guy, or in the room with pitching with the guys, or kind of pitching. And I was wondering if that experience is a conglomeration of like every meeting you've ever been to, and the hilarity that, you know, happens in kind of like these generals where they bring like a new like female voice in to like see what they're up to, or if that was like a really specific experience that you were basing that kind of the number of scenes on.
There's like so much of those things that really happened, not all in one meeting, but all in different meetings, like starting with the very first meeting that I ever had, which I think was right after I graduated from film school. I had like a meeting with a manager at Mosaic, and he didn't read my script, and he just told me that I was very New York. And then he was like, I love New York though, you know, like, but it's just, you're very New York, you know?
Yeah.
Not knowing what that means. And hilariously, you know, like I only went to school in New York. Like I grew up in Northern Virginia. So I just somehow assimilated the entire city in like 4 years of film school, which, you know, is a triumph in its own right. It's
yeah.
But then later, like more serious instances, you know, made their way into the scenes, like a meeting that I had with one of the producers of this film of, we went to a meeting, and we're trying to talk about a script that we wanted to do, and the guy got like really excited and then was like telling us how this script is really like a script that his friend wrote, and that I would just absolutely love it, and that like his friend, you know, like, but you know, it's about like a woman, and like maybe his friend isn't like the right guy to like, you know, direct it anymore, so like I should direct it, you know, instead of like directing my script about a woman, I should like really direct his friend's script about a woman, because he can't direct it anymore because of like Me Too and stuff, so I should do it.
And at what point did you kind of find yourself becoming, did you find yourself becoming more interested in making a film about being asked to make something about like the female experience, or like use your, you know, experience to make a film about, you know, to make a you know, a film from a like a strong female perspective? Did you feel like you had a choice in that, or at some point, because I know this is what happened to me, I realized all I could think about making was a film about people telling me what I was supposed to be making?
Yes, that is it, 100%. It's like this film is like pushing back against these mostly men, but you know, there are some women who are, you know, telling female voices what they're supposed to be articulating. And usually it's not always like, you know, it's like somewhere between like they think we should be making like rape revenge thrillers, and also like things about sex trafficking and abortion, and just things that they think are things that only women have opinions on, and everything else should be left to guys, and we can have our little niche, and our thing of like relevant topics, and obviously the only things that we care about, and the rest is for guys to like be creative about. And the idea that a woman might feel more passionate about making something that has nothing to do with gender or the female experience is, I guess, something that they can't wrap their heads around. And in a way, like they kind of forced me to make this movie, because they were really like shoving it down my throat that was what I was supposed to be articulating. So in a way I was like, well, if that's what you want, fine, but you're not going to like it. This is what I think,
Yeah. I had a really similar experience, although I think I did not actually make anything like where you used it for this creative energy. Like it wasn't until I stopped thinking about it and released it that I actually found myself making like like I was almost like watching it like, oh wow, like so this is what it looks like when you make the movie about when you are really that boxed in. Because it wasn't until I totally released it that I actually also in a way made a movie about being boxed in. I think, I don't know, maybe people wouldn't say that about what I made, but I want to know, so was the serial killer idea like an idea that you always had, and then, or was that was that the idea that you were bringing out, and then you're like, okay, now I'm gonna make the serial killer with the like meta element on top of it? Or
No, there was another script that I was working on, that I was taking around with my producers. And I was really passionate about that one. That was what I wanted to be my first feature. And it just, there was, I don't know, it seemed to be met with a lot of incredulity that a woman would want to make a film about like a topic of, something so dark, with like so much humor, and also to tell it with a male protagonist at the center, like not a strong female lead. And so there was a lot of frustration I felt, and a frustration of people just not wanting to hear it, like not wanting to know about it because it didn't fit into what they thought that I should be doing. And also a feeling of like, I didn't think that my male peers were experiencing the same things. I didn't think that they were like, like, but you're a man, don't you want to make a movie about man things? And, the first short that I did won the Midnight Prize at the South by Southwest. And I thought that was naively, I thought that was like going to open doors to like talking to people about a feature. And, at least in like genre spaces or something like that. But
I don't think it's naive. I think that happens to a lot of people. It just, I thought the same thing. It just doesn't happen to everybody. That, the doors get opened for anything, right? Like the doors don't get open for anything. They get open for a really specific thing. I didn't mean to interrupt you, though, if you didn't finish your thought. Well, so wait, I'm looking at my little questions that I wrote to you. So then my question then would be kind of about process, which is like how then, with specifically the serial killer thread, and I want to get a little bit deeper into that, but how did you kind of like develop, like what was your process in terms of taking like this one-to-one thing, which is like a very painful experience of like not being heard, not having the opportunities, feeling like a failure, and how did you kind of like depart into this other story?
Well, the thing had this feature had its origin in like a lot of failures, like not just one failure. I can't help but bring a lot of different failures to everything that I do. It's like after that first short, I wanted to try doing like a documentary short. I don't know why I thought that would be a good idea, or it would be, you know, something that I knew how to do. But I did really get a compliment that I would make a good murderer from those friends that you see in the movie. And so I worked with my camera person, Olivia, and I did, you know, interview people that I knew about whether they thought that. And also, and in like the process of that, it became apparent to me that like the qualities that make a good murderer are a lot of what you like bring to filmmaking, you know, creativity, resourcefulness, continuity, like overcoming obstacles, like really being able to see something through, and you know, even like once the film is like done, you know, always being committed to it. And that's, you know, that's the secret to kind of getting away with a murder, is to like never crack. And
Yeah. No, go ahead.
oh, so I finished a cut of that short, which is what they're watching on the laptop. And but I felt like it was just too cute. Like there was like no point to it, so I never put it out. But then when I was facing so much trouble trying to make my first feature, I was actually just talking with my producers about like, hey, do you know like this, what a maniac I am? I made this short once about this. And they were like, well, we want to see it. And I thought they would hate it and fire me, but they actually really liked it. And so we talked about finishing it as a super like micro budget narrative, where I would just like continue taking the documentary footage and then add on to it as like basically telling the story of my life as if I never got to make a feature. You know, what would happen to me.
Mm. And did it develop, was this shot in a like a very short amount of time? Was this kind of piecemealed together?
No, it was 12 and a half days.
Wow. Yeah, I was trying to figure out, I was like, wow, like is she really doing this all alone? But I was curious about expanding this universe from being this filmmaker who has failed to being this like very successful serial killer.
I think that, well, the dolly idea was that was all Olivia's, the DP. She built that dolly, and she would like build it and take it from location to location and like separate it, and she made the whole thing. It's incredible. It
Cool.
works. It's like
Yeah.
spooky, but it really works. And you know, it's kind of to show you know, the character actually becoming the filmmaker that she wants to be. You know, there's this progression throughout the film of like the beginning, like the camera is always like kind of locked down. There's like not much sophistication to the lighting. As the film goes on, like she is getting better and she's learning more things, and she is on her own, like you know, developing as an artist. And I think you're right that like she definitely alienates people, you know, with her need, with her mix of insecurity and ego that, you know, I really identify with, like that feeling of like, you know, I think I can do this, like why isn't it happening? And you know, you just really tear yourself apart up about it. And she definitely goes through that. And I mean, the character of Keith is kind of this this foil to her, in the sense of he's obviously somebody that also like wanted to do what she's doing, but then decided, to do something more stable and become an editor on a superhero teen show. And he clearly, there's probably a part of him that enjoys the virtuousness of supporting his, female girlfriend filmmaker, but also really resents that she's not waking up and giving up and doing what he's doing. Not that like getting a real job on a TV show is giving up, but it's giving up on the like really guerrilla style one-man band personal expression.
Mm-hmm.
And so I mean eventually it kind of, it destroys the relationship, because she not only will she not give up on herself, but she looks, she tells him, she's like, I can't do it without you. And it pushes him away. I mean, I think that that's something we can all really relate to. I think that a lot of filmmakers have destroyed their relationships by making a film. And it's worth it when the film is good. And if it's not, it really just is it's a punch to the gut that you like fucked up everything.
Mm-hmm.
But sorry. Oh, and the suicide notes. Yeah, that's kind of that like really kind of helps to push the plot into like its next phase, in the sense of like she is good at what she does, but she like is so good that she can't get the credit for it,
Right. Yeah, it's really interesting. The suicide notes are really interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I've always felt like I keep writing these things and I keep doing these things, and then maybe like 5 years later, people this is what I feel like. Obviously, this is me being like solipsistic, but like 5 years later, people are into what I was doing 5 years ago, and I was like, I already did that. Like, like there's a little bit like the feeling of being ahead of one's time. And I'm curious, this kind of leads me to my next question, and this is a question that I often think about with my own work, and I don't know how much it played into your work, but I'm really curious to know how kind of present white woman privilege is in when you're creating something. And I say this like because right, we both had this experience of being a woman, and then we've both had this experience of going into these kind of like capitalist pitch places and stuff like that, and being tokenized, not tokenized in a negative way, but being tokenized in like, tell me about your experience, right? Like we're like really lauded, like what is your experience? But then we also have the experience, of being white, which is, like the privilege. And I'm curious to know, if at all, how that played into this, or if, like I think it was something I was less aware of 5 years ago than I am of now. And I'm, kind of constantly like rolling it over in my mind, like how do I I don't even know I don't really even know how to say it, but like how do I keep this in my mind as I'm making something? I don't know. How do you, or do you?
I mean, what I'm trying to do right now is I try to have the awareness that I feel like when I feel like my toes are being stepped on, and I feel like, I see a man making a story and just being like, I don't really think this was the right person, to tell this thing and to come to it from this place. Although if he does it fucking great, then it's always the right person. If he, this is not like the most popular thing to say, but I think that like Lars von Trier is like one of the greatest directors in terms of like really getting across what it's like to be a woman. It's like being a a universal doormat in a lot of ways. And maybe, I don't know him personally, but it seems like he has a iffy track record of women liking to work with him. Whatever, he seems to really get how to put it on screen. And it's personally really touched me in a lot of ways, like breaking the waves. I think that's life, and but for the most part, I think that it's not like we need to stay in our lanes, but we need to, it's about like making room for people who are the best articulators of their own stories. And so whereas, if I were to make like a film, and it's also about like wanting to be engaged with the times and like not wanting to be talking about something that's like not relevant. So I think like, okay, if we're like white women and we want to make a film that like speaks to where we're in and speaks to a diverse audience, I'm interested right now in like making films about like white guilt and like about neoliberalism and like how neoliberalism is like really caught up in maintaining the capitalist status quo and not making room for not actually making room in the economy and in the labor force, and like kind of distracting people with culture war stuff in order to like really maintain inequality the way it is, because it favors white neoliberals. That's like my personal feeling. I'm interested in kind of doing something about that. And so I wouldn't try to like make a Jordan Peele movie, for example, but I would try to like make The People Under the Stairs, something more like that,
And was there kind of an awareness of an awareness in making this film of I don't know, that both the stereotype but also the reality of the kind of like white woman, like white woman privilege, like I'm gonna make what I want to make. I mean, I'm just curious because I've written a script about that at some point, and I think that I feel some resonance, like is right, like I'm gonna make like this. It's very like the character of Gillian is in a way extremely entitled.
Yeah,
she's like extremely entitled, but also in a way like wallows in the opportunities that she is not getting. And it becomes this, I don't know, this almost like self-fulfilling prophecy that to me feels very like, I don't know if I would call it archetypal, right? Because it's not like a super old, it is a super old archetype. But I mean, in the way, in cinema, it's, I shouldn't talk about cinema. I know nothing about cinema. I was just curious to see it, to kind of think about where this character in particular came from, just based on my own experiences.
She is really entitled, and I think that's why she pushes so hard, because she thinks that she does have a seat at the table and she doesn't know why she's not getting it. And the truth is, she does deserve to have the same seat at the table that all of her male peers do, and that disconnect totally drives her crazy. I think that there is a little bit of the way that I was raised, probably the way that you were raised too, of like, this kind of third wave feminism, and they're like, don't worry, we fixed it. Now you girls can do everything, be good at math and go be astronauts, and you can have kids and earn as much as men, and don't worry, it's done. And I feel like that's exactly the same thing that's happened with this post-Me Too climate as well. Is it's like, I feel like the industry is telling a lot of female filmmakers, like, don't worry, we fixed it. the bad guys are gone and you can do anything. And I'm not seeing a lot of changes.
Yeah, that's very true. Cool. Well, I think that's all the questions that I had. I don't know. Is there any last things that you want to say?
I don't know. I mean, it's been like it's been really inspiring talking to you, because like I really do I have always felt like our films were in dialogue with each other, and even like just things that you would say on Twitter, like about music videos, and like your experiences with that, and like uh, I don't know. I just I've always really admired your vulnerability and sincerity.
I didn't mean this. You didn't have to say anything about my work. No.
No. But like, I think I've it really resonates with me. I try to do that too, and I feel like something that we both do, which I hope like is a good example to other filmmakers. Like, there's a filmmaker, for example, that you always troll on Twitter that I fucking love the way you do it, because that person is always like very, you know, it's easy to make movies, just go out and do it, you know? And it's a great way to make people feel like shit who don't have that kind of access and who aren't getting things done. It's it turns things on you, and it's like, well, my work hasn't turned out that way and doesn't have the kind of audience that that person who says I just need to get out there and do it is doing. It must be my fault. And I think that what you and I both do is like we try to draw attention to institutional practices, which is so much less easy to brand than something that's like very positive and self-affirming and attractive. I worry that what I do comes across as whiny all the time. I worry that, I Blame Society is like a great way to blow up in my face before like my career's even started, because I'm just pointing out like how nobody's letting me in, and inviting people to say, well, obviously there's a reason for it because she doesn't fucking know what she's doing. But I think that rather than acting like I know everything and I'm a girl boss and a big deal, I'd rather relate authentically and be truthful about how I feel like a failure all the fucking time.
Yeah, that resonates with me. Well, congratulations, you've done it. And I mean, I think the last thing I'll say is the coolest thing about the time we live in, which is also maybe the worst time about the time we live in, is that there's literally so much information and media that like anything that you do, this is my belief, anything one does like will eventually disappear and you can do something else that's new. And that is, congratulations on this film, and one day it'll eventually evaporate and you'll make something new. That's all I mean, that's kind of what I say to a lot of the musicians that I've worked with in the past, is like, yeah, someday this might not reflect you, and that's okay. Like, you get to make something else, because we're really, really hungry as a society for moving images. That's a constant. There will always be new moving images. So yeah, congratulations on this, on this thing that will last forever, and not, for not at all.
Thank you, Zia. Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, and thanks to Indie Memphis, and I guess that's
Thanks,
it.
Miriam. Yeah.